I've been a Mad Max fan for a long time, and when I first heard of Fury Road starring someone other than Mel Gibson as Max, I was really skeptical. Oh, Shinzon from Star Trek Nemesis is playing Max? Okay then. But then I heard that George Miller was returning to the director's chair for this fourth installment, which piqued my interests. And with news of mostly practical car stunts and that amazing trailer, I found myself along on the hype train towards Fury Road. And after finally seeing it, I have to say I really enjoyed it. Like a lot. I found myself daydreaming about the film just days after viewing it. And that's not something that commonly happens with me. The visuals of this movie are certainly one of its strongest aspects. World building has always been one of the stronger aspects of the franchise, and easily one of the most interesting. Charlize Theron's character Furiosa was my favorite character of the film. I found myself invested in her struggle, and through her performance and strong writing, I found her to be a very interesting character. I also thought the villains' wives were strongly written and believable. And as a Mad Max fan, I was delighted to see the actor who played Toe Cutter in the original film as the villain Immortal Joe in this film, and he was as threatening as ever. Everything I've seen about this film has been blatantly praising it. I've even seen people say that it should get an Oscar for Best Picture. I honestly think that's a little extreme. I think that people use the word masterpiece too loosely. This certainly isn't the best of George Miller's work, and just by the Mad Max series itself, I personally think the second film is superior. Though I really enjoyed this movie, and it will most likely be one of my favorite films of the year, there were several aspects of the movie that continually took me out of the film. I wasn't looking for flaws in the film, they just happened. And since this is my channel where I choose to express myself, I feel I should talk about these flaws. Because although it's a fantastic movie, what I interpreted as flaws are still there, and I'd like to discuss them. As much as I praise Theron's performance as well as the wives, it pains me to say that the title character Max was the least interesting aspect of the film. As a matter of fact, a simple rewrite could have eliminated his character entirely. Personally, what draws me to these films outside of the post-apocalyptic world and the car stunts is Max's character and his journey. In the first film, you see Max's character trying to survive in a world where the lights are just about to go out, and his struggle not to become part of the chaos. In the second film, he walks the fine line between good and evil. And in the third, well, he doesn't really grow much in the third. I have similar complaints about his character in the third movie as well as this one. He's gone from a character with a lot of potential and depth to a generic action hero. Although in Beyond Thunderdome, Mel Gibson's performance was enough to carry the movie despite his lack of character.
Can't we just get Beyond Thunderdome? Thank you.
Unfortunately, Tom Hardy lacked the charisma needed for this performance. Max's character has always relied on subtlety rather than dialogue. And let me just say, subtlety is not Hardy's strong suit.
Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
And this isn't just my opinion. Hardy himself has made an open apology to the director about his performance, calling it myopic. It's not bad per se, but it's pretty bland. And I think that's amazing that he humbled himself and apologized. And I wish coming out of the movie I could have ranted and raved about how much I loved Hardy in the role, but I simply can't. Maybe next time. Another thing that I found jarring while watching this movie was Max's flashback sequences. They were a device to introduce people to Max's character, but I can tell from the mood of the theater that it just caused more confusion. After seeing all the Mad Max films, I was confused as well. You see, Max's wife and blonde baby boy were killed by a motorcycle gang in the first movie, and they've now been replaced by a dark-haired 6-year-old girl. For a majority of the movie, I was trying to figure out who this kid was, until I finally realized it was supposed to be his child when she called him Dad. At this point, I figured maybe this isn't the fourth movie of a franchise, perhaps it's a reboot. However, just moments later, they cut to footage from the first film, which left me very confused. I feel like this movie works better as a sequel and not at all as a reboot. However, even as a sequel, it's very problematic because of its reboot elements. Also, when they cut to the flashback of his daughter getting killed, it's shot in such a jarring way that it's almost comical. I recall hearing someone laugh in the theater when it happened. I couldn't help but think, why didn't they just use footage from the first film? I feel like that would have been much more shocking than what they displayed instead. It was really weird because the daughter was at eye level with the camera, but the cars were viewed from underneath. The perspective is all whacked, and I don't blame that guy for laughing. Just recently, George Miller stated in an interview that the Mad Max films are individual movies with little connections to the other installments. I can see that with the third movie, and as well with this one, but not with the first two. I feel like they have a strong bond between them. This is my own personal opinion, and not based on any kind of fact, but it really seems like George Miller was trying to cover up for continuity errors. And something I was disappointed by, it's kind of a personal pet peeve when it comes to action movies. There's a recent trend with action movies that the hero is invincible, almost like a superhero. Some of the best examples I can think of is John McClane from the Die Hard series. In the first film, his character goes through a journey, and you can see it on his body as he is physically beaten down by the end of the film. And then we get to Die Hard 5, and he's a superhero that can't get hurt. Same thing happened with Indiana Jones. As the movies went on, he became more and more invincible. And that really takes me out of the movie. And I feel like something's lost when you do that to your action hero. It makes them feel less human. Max is an invincible superhero, and it's partly why I loved Furiosa so much in this movie. The journey she goes through in this film does not leave her untouched. She is physically beaten, and it's realistic, and it helped me get more involved in her character, to root for her, to hope that she succeeds. I also thought it was a nice touch that her wounds resembled the wounds of Max's in the second film. And lastly, I want to talk about the car stunts. If you know anything about this franchise, you know that they're usually the centerpiece of these movies, with the plots being a device that leads you from one action sequence to the next. And that's all fine and dandy. However, the oversaturation of the coloring made the stunts look less impressive, and blended them too much with the CGI linking them together. Upon this first viewing, I didn't realize how many practical stunts were in this movie. And looking back at some of the B-roll, I am impressed with how many practical effects was actually used in the making of this film. I want to say it's a good 70% that are all practically done. And upon my second viewing, I suspect I'll be blown away by them. I've always felt the raw look of the first two movies, and even the third, made the violence seem more real. And the raw look helped me get more immersed in the world. Whereas this film, seeing the reddish tones and seeing light interact unnaturally were just constant reminders I was watching a movie. Well, please forgive me for being so nitpicky. I honestly really loved this movie. I know this is not a common opinion on the internet, but I think it's perfectly fine to take issues with movies you enjoy. I loved this movie, but that doesn't mean it's a perfect film. I liked it a lot, and I can't wait to watch it again on Blu-ray. In conclusion, I'd say that this was a great standalone action film, a serviceable sequel, and a poor reboot. But still a lot of fun, and I'd highly recommend you check it out. I'm Joey Hollywood, and these were my thoughts on Mad Max Fury Road.